Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, it's been quite an eventful week, and that's the reason for this quite unexpected line and wash of an English country cottage. So what happened is my dear old Dalmatian Molly had an accident and lost the use of both of her back legs. She's down here recovering, and I think she's going to be okay. But I had to dash off at 5 in the morning for some emergency treatment, and I have to give a special thanks to Victoria at Davis for some wonderful care. So, miles from home, I had to find somewhere to stay for a few days, and the nearest town was Hitchin in Hertfordshire. Now, I'd never been there before, but it turned out to be a real pretty little market town with lots of bars and cafes and interesting little shops. So while eating my full English breakfast, which by the way you have to have by law if staying in a hotel in the UK, I noticed this display board opposite informing me all about the local artist Samuel Lucas, who I must admit I'd never heard of. So as I had plenty of time, I set off for the town museum to find out more. Now it turns out that he was a Quaker and a brewer, which I found interesting, and painted many local scenes. He also produced many wonderful loose pen sketches of the countryside. So I thought to myself, now there's an idea. So here is Samuel Lucas's original sketch, dated 1864, of this lovely cottage with an old lady collecting water. And I just love the loose line work and the simple hatching for the shadows. Okay, today's materials. My paper is some Saunders Waterford 300-pound rough, nice and thick so won't need stretching. Any decent watercolour paper will do. My colours today, normal 3 primaries, Cobalt blue, Alizarin crimson, Cadmium yellow, then some yellow ochre, Payne's grey, burnt umber and burnt sienna, and just 3 brushes, my mop, number 6 and number 12 round. Now, as with all my line and washes, I like to pencil it out first before committing to any pen work. And of course, a drawing template is available to download free of charge from my website, link below. So I'm simply taking a waterproof black pen, and this is just a cheap unbranded make, and drawing in a quick sketchy style, leaving lots of gaps and just letting my pen flow across the paper. What I'm trying to imagine as I'm drawing this is the actual moment Samuel Lucas sat on the bank here and sketched this very scene. Now it's dated 10th of December 1864, so I'm hoping he was wrapped up nice and warm. He was born in 1805, so that would make him 59 when he drew this. And I just wonder what he would have thought about me reproducing his sketch over a century and a half later, with folks from all corners of the world watching on. It's just hard to imagine. So now all the line work is done, I'm just rubbing out all the pencil lines with a soft putty rubber. Off we go, and I start by wetting the sky with a large mop and then dropping in with my number 12 a graduated wash of Cobalt blue, and then just a few strokes of Alizarin crimson. Dry off the brush and then lift out a few clouds. and you can also use a tissue for a few harder edge clouds. And while I've still got the blue on my brush, I'm going to paint the river in. Now you can really paint the background landscape in any colours you want, but I'm just trying to mix my greens with much more of a blue tone for the trees in the distance. Now for these houses, and I'm using some yellow ochre, and I'm going to be leaving out at least one wall unpainted in white. Similar green tones for this nearer bank, and all my greens are mixing from a combination of cadmium yellow and cobalt blue, but always dropping in wet, different colours and warmer greens, including some touches of burnt umber. Now I'm using a much thicker mix of paint and using the side of my brush and dragging it over the paper to get this dry brush texture for these trees, making sure the wash is transparent enough to still see the original colour underneath. And here I'm just using a little splatter to add some more texture, and you might want to cover up your sky area as sometimes it can go everywhere. Okay, so now I'm thinking of the direction of light which is coming from the top right. So I'm painting in the thatch roof in a watery mix of yellow ochre, and then dropping in wet some burnt umber for the shadow side. Okay, so now we need to let this totally dry. So it's a perfect time for a short break and a glass of Hertfordshire's own Ridgeway Bitter. Next, I'm using some burnt sienna for the brick side of the cottage, and then dropping in a little burnt umber for some shadows. And for the shadow side of the white end of the cottage, I'm using some watery Payne's Grey. Next, I'm using my number 6 round brush and a stronger mix of the burnt umber for some of the shadow sides and some further details. And of course, we mustn't forget her bonnet. And now with some Payne's Grey, and I'm reckoning that these windows would be old leaded lights, so I'm just dabbing in a few dots just to give an impression. And a much darker shadow here in the doorway and to the cottage. Now I'm back again with some burnt umber just to bring out a little more detail. so now for the water. Now it looks like from the sketch that there's a little movement in the water here. So I'm just using some cobalt blue in this first section, but dropping in a few reflecting colours. And here just leaving some white gaps to suggest that bit of movement in the water. Now for this section where the water is fairly still, I'm re-wetting with a large mop and then quickly dropping in wet in wet matching colours to the above, making sure I get the darker values directly below where they appear on the cottage. And to get the reflected white of the cottage, I'm lifting out with a damp brush. Now, it's always worth having these washes pre-mixed, ready and waiting. Too much time spent mixing colour will allow that wash to dry. We just need to work very quickly. Now this has had time to dry, I can evaluate which lines could do with some extra pen work. Okay, so perhaps here I'll just add a few cobalt blue ripples in the foreground. Always use quick one-stroke brush lines. That way you will often pick up some of that lovely texture from the paper. All we've got to do now is add a few highlights with our white pastel pencil, white gouache acrylic or even a white gel pen will also work well. So here we go, sign it and we're done, and I really hope that Samuel Lucas would have approved. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did and you'll give it a go. Now, just a quick announcement, we've managed to finalise on a few details on some events this summer and autumn, UK only at the moment, including some outdoor painting days, one-day workshops and a 3-day event at a beautiful Sussex hotel. All the details will be in the description below. So, thanks again everyone for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Put the thumbs up, leave a comment, and of course I look forward to seeing you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Cheers now everyone.